A champion that the world discounted has returned to show the people why he is here to play. Let me explain. As of the time of this recording right now, Capcom Cup is underway. Players are battling it out in the group stages right now to compete for their shot to win $1 million with over $2 million in pricing going on. And we've already had the LCQ, the Last Chance Qualifier, complete over the weekend. And to remind you guys about the format and why this LCQ is so significant, remember, Capcom Cup features players qualifying from regional qualifications all over the world. While there are some offline events that were open bracket, there was 3 chances to qualify with international competition, open bracket, anyone could enter. The vast majority of the qualifiers of the 48 players were produced by having regional CPT online tournaments where players from that region would compete to qualify, or the World Warrior program in that region, which is more like a tournament series within the region, and the winner of that would qualify. Meaning each region gets 2 participants from their region to go to Capcom Cup and compete. No matter how strong the region may be or how historically dominant the region may be, you only get 2 representatives to go to Capcom Cup, including places like Japan, which in the past and previous years' formats would comprise 50% of all Capcom Cup qualifiers through the point system, which awarded players for consistency over a season. So this leads to a lot of players from underrepresented regions who didn't have the opportunity to travel to a lot of these events. So many strong players from all over the world who didn't have the same shot before to travel. But also there's a mixed bag where top level players were gatekept by being in heavily contested regions like, Japan. So that makes this LCQ who's who of competitors here. So you can see the groups were already decided for Capcom Cup, and Group H right here is where the winner of the Last Chance Qualifier will fall. So actually a lot of the players were looking at this Group H and saying, man, based on how stacked the LCQ is, the LCQ winner is the favorite to make it out of this group, and nobody even knew who that person was going to be. And that's because there's so many top level players in this LCQ. Players like Kakeru, definitely, I would say, considered the best JP in the planet for this season. One of the top performer players in the offline CPT series and the Gamers 8 champion. Probably the richest man in Street Fighter 6 right now, winning $400,000 for Gamers 8 in first place, besides who's going to win Capcom Cup this year. We also had Tokido, of course. No Tokido, no Capcom Cup. He is in the LCQ as well. Players like Punk to God trying their best to make it in through the qualification. And of course, Daigo's in there, not chucking sonic booms this time, but rocking his can. All competing for a chance to make it into Capcom Cup to then compete for the chance to win $1 million. And if you just go through the attendees for who actually went to this tournament, it's just a who's who of top level Street Fighter 6 talent. There's so many high level players to this tournament. It's arguably the most stacked tournament we've had the entire year aside from EVO. And even then, there's some players here that weren't able to go to EVO who are extremely strong. So a super stacked tournament with tons of great action. So here's some of the highlights from the pools. I mean, the pools themselves are just actually ridiculous to look at. So one of the big highlights, Problem X actually manages to make it out of his pool in winner's side over at Moke. And I would say this is a pretty big upset based on the expectations people had going into this. Moke had a really strong CPT season. He had a really high placing finish at EVO. I believe 9th or 7th place. He went really far at EVO. Didn't quite make it to the big stage. Good performances in his CPT region as well. And so he was looking really strong. And one of my favorites originally to even take CPT Japan. But Problem X ends up taking it over Moke here, gets the conversion to the level 3, and makes it into the top 16 winners side. A player we haven't heard too much of in this season so far, making over one of the favorites in the pools. Another big play was, of course, Punk versus Daigo. They had Punk going up against Daigo in pools. This last round was a butt clencher where 30 seconds remain on the clock. Punk has gone into burnout twice. He dodges the last DI attempt to make it out. I'm telling you, this final round was a butt clencher. If you haven't seen this match, please go check it out. It's definitely one of the best matches of the whole tournament. Punk makes it into the top 16 winners over Daigo. But fear not, Daigo gets to go to the losers bracket to run up against one of the best JPs on the planet, VX Bao, previous Capcom Cup qualifier, and actually one of the players who beat Punk in final Capcom Cup for Street Fighter V. Punk tried to mirror match VX Bao's Cody, and VX Bao kind of cooked Punk in that showing. DCQ and Despair King are the people who qualified out of China. I thought VX Bao was for sure going to make it in, but he lost in grand finals to Despair King's jury, so he's battling it out in the LCQ instead. And then look at this setup here. He activates a target combo with level 2, and once you activate this setup and they're not already in parry parry on the heavy kick turret combo, you cannot use parry in between that level 2 sequence, so you have to manually block this sequence. And if you just pay attention to how this is actually working, it's so gnarly because he's going low while the fireballs are hitting high, so you have to block high and then quickly shift down to low. There's no true unblockable, but it's extremely tight high-low blocking, so you can learn that sequence. But it's definitely a horrible position to be in, and that jailed level 2 is what knocks Daigo out of the LCQ, and VXBOW moves on into top 16 on the loser's side. Another really big surprise out of this this LCQ in pools was Julio Fuentes, also known as Arcade Rat as a CFN in Street Fighter 6. If you're not familiar with Julio Fuentes, he was a top American Yun player in Street Fighter 4. And then in the beginning of Street Fighter 5, he was one of the best, if not maybe the best Ken from North America. He was part of the Ken Trinity of Brent Christie and Julio Fuentes at that time. And for his success, he was actually picked up by Echo Fox. When Echo Fox was a huge sponsor in the FGC, one of the first players they picked up was Julio Fuentes, and Julio was actually winning a lot of majors at that time and even qualified for Capcom Cup in early days of Street Fighter 5, the 2016 Capcom Cup. But unfortunately, due to hand issues, he had to retire from playing for quite some time and took a long hiatus before returning for Street Fighter 6, rocking JP, and he was put into the JP pool of death. They put the vast majority of top-level JPs in one pool with Julio Fuentes, Nemo, and Seo. And Seo is a top anime competitor, multiple fighting game champion, and now top level JP out of Singapore. And they put them all in the pool along with Mago. And in this pool, we have Julio beating Nemo 2-1, beating Mago 2-1, and beating Seo 2-0 to make it out in top 16 winners. I don't think anyone called Julio Fuentes being the guy to make it out of this pool in winners, but that was a huge play from him. So congratulations. He was cooking in this tournament. And then, other big plays, Random. Now, Random was one of the most entertaining players in this whole LCQ because he is a top-level Manon player from Germany. He actually was one of the players who almost qualified for Capcom Cup out of his region in Germany. He was doing really good in the World Warrior and the CPT event, but just couldn't quite close out in the end in first place. But he was super entertaining to watch, and actually was the player who double jeopardied Mizuha, a top-level Kami player, the guy who put Kakeru in losers for his CPT event. And look at this round. Level 5 Manon. 1 command grab. 2 command grabs. OD overhead after the command grab into the level 2. This is literally the perfect mathematical Manon sequence. I think every Manon player is foaming at the mouth when they get 5 medals to have a round like this. And Random not only lands it, he lands it in tournament over Mizuha, top level Japanese Kami, one of the strongest in the world. And it's just the perfect sequence. So he does this and he gets into winners finals. He actually loses to JB, top level Rashid player, the best Rashid player represented for a long time now from America, but actually beats Mizuha again and losers to double jeopardy Mizuha to get into the top 16 losers side. So really entertaining guy, really humble. This is his first offline tournament ever, he reveals in the interviews. Never played offline before. So European players are familiar with him terrorizing online in Europe, but he's a new up-and-coming player, super strong, very entertaining. So big shout out to Random for putting on a show at this LCQ. So moving on then, we have the top 16 brackets. Tokido versus John Takeuchi, Punk versus Yamaguchi, Kakeru versus JB, Problem X versus Julio Fuentes on the winner side. Loser side, Noah the Prodigy, Zhen, the last year's LCQ winner and second place runner-up for Capcom Cup at the very end after winning the LCQ. VXBOW versus Aqua, and this is Hibiki the Beast versus Random. Hibiki the Beast, the best Lily player on the planet versus Random, the best, potentially the best Manon player on the planet, and Moke versus Nemo. So a super stacked loser side bracket. As we get into the matches, one of the big upsets, JB from America, longtime Rashid player and actually a qualifier for Capcom Cup back in 2019. He qualified in the old point system with Rashid back then. He beats Kakeru in winner's side with his Rashid versus JP. So that was definitely a really big match in the top 16. And then Hibiki the Beast, of course, I mentioned him before. This is Hibiki the Beast, one of the first big offline events we were seeing with him. I think this is his first time in the USA. I might be mistaken, but I don't think he's traveled internationally to compete at least. So he actually went up and he eliminated Random in the loser side in a close match. And then he goes up against Yamaguchi. Yamaguchi is probably the second best DJ player out of Japan behind Fudo. In the World Warrior program, he actually qualified on loser's side and then beat all the best Japanese players from the losers bracket to get the grand finals before losing to Fudo, where Fudo then qualified for Capcom Cup. So he was one set away, or one victory away from qualifying into Capcom Cup. Here we have Hibiki the Beast going up against Yamaguchi on match point, rushing down DJ for top 8 qualification here. Gets the hit, gets the job done. This match was so fast. Hibiki the Beast 2-0 over Yamaguchi. Speed ran through him to make it into top 8. And at the LCQ, we have a Lily player in top 8 and one of the most stacked tournaments we've ever had for Street Fighter 6. So Hibiki the Beast, he also put Daigo into losers round 1 of the CPT online qualifier for Japan. So he's been making a big splash, and he'll actually be competing at Red Bull Kumite in New York. So Red Bull picked him up and it got him to go to another event. So you'll be seeing more Hibiki action in the future. So shout out to Hibiki for that. So when it's all said and done, we have Tokido moving on to winner's side, Punk on winner's side, JB and Problem X, and then on loser side, top 8, Gen and Kakeru, Hibiki the Beast, and John Takeuchi. So moving on to that bracket, you can see here all the players, the matches are ready to go. And of course, we have Tokido versus Punk. The people love doing this callback to Evo 2017, where Punk had put Tokido into losers before top 8, was in grand finals winner side, cooking the competition before Tokido met him in grand finals and ran it all the way back to win the championship. And people love to bring up this moment for Punk in his career. He was so young at this time, and he had such a dominant season along with trash talking the competition. So Punk has a shot for a little bit of a redemption here in this top 8, and it gets down to the final game between these players, where Punk then finds the spin knuckle in, gets the conversion, finds the meaty conversion into his level 2 here, and it's all just one hit away. And I'm telling you, these guys were gaming during the set. Super try hard mode, very safe, calculated play. The pressure opens up Tokido, and Punk takes it over Tokido to get into the winners finals of the LCQ. And then moving on as well, Problem X on a really strong run actually takes it 3-1 over JB to then also meet Punk into the winners finals. So Punk, Problem X in winners finals. Watching this, I was like, wait, what year is it? This reminds me so much of 2019, 2018, Punk and Problem X. These two were fighting in so many tournaments and in so many grand final appearances, going back and forth. Punk was, of course, super strong, as well as Problem X in this Street Fighter V era. And it had been a while since we've seen these two titans of Street Fighter clash at this level. And what does that lead to? A bit of a wash. Punk actually 3-0'd Problem X's Blanca in this set. Problem X didn't get any momentum going, and Punk goes on to the grand finals on winner's side. But in losers, there's more developments forming. We have Kakeru going up against Tokido. Remember, Kakeru had such a great run at EVO this year, and he was only eliminated by Tokido after a crucial drop where he had a overhead reset, where he had the portal above Tokido where the spike was supposed to pick up the combo. And in a 1 in 1,000 situation, the spike went the wrong way, almost like a bug. It's a really difficult situation to recreate. 99% of the time, that spike would have picked up and killed Tokido, but Tokido had plot armor that day. The combo didn't pick up, and Tokido found a reversal super to win the set. Well, and this LCQ and loser side, they're on the final round in this set. Kakeru sets up the spacing trap into the level 2, and Tokido bites with the fireball activation. The level 2 punishes, and he gets a little bit of revenge over Tokido here in the LCQ. I'm sure he would have preferred winning on the big stage at EVO instead, but a little bit of redemption both for Kakeru and Punk over the murder-faced Tokido, who caused them a lot of woes in their EVO runs, and Tokido has been eliminated from the LCQ, and Kakeru moves on. In the meanwhile, JB goes up against John Takeuchi, one of the best Rashid players ever out of Japan, and I feel like John Takeuchi is one of the most low-key top-level Japanese players. He had a run in Japan in 2021 and 2022, being one of the most dominant players and the online era in Japan before Kawano kind of claimed that title. Before Kawano, it was John Takeuchi, and he's been competing for a very long time now with his Rashid, and JB actually took it in the mirror match 3-2 over John Takeuchi. So JB having the run of a lifetime here, and that all comes down to the rematch between JB and Kakeru. Remember, JB, definitely an upset on paper based on what people would expect. I think Rashid can really give JP a hard time, and JB has labbed this matchup heavily. He's put in a ton of work. He knows all the weird interactions of the tech. He gets Kakeru on the ropes here, and look at this. He almost gets in a bad spot there with that DI. So when you're too low in life, you can't counter DI. You'll just die from the impact. You don't have enough health to absorb it. But Kakeru, he's the perfect parry king. Remember how he beat Angry Bird in Gamers 8 Grand Finals by incorporating the perfect parries. If he had landed that perfect parry, JB would have been in burnout. He has level 2 available. That could have been a huge turnaround. So he didn't get the perfect parry. The risk doesn't bite JB right there. He finds the air reset, gets the punish, and double jeopardies one of the favorites to take this tournament. So that is a huge win for JB. Congratulations on causing these big upsets. And Kakeru is eliminated from the LCQ and will not be in Capcom Cup. And what does JB get in return for this? He gets a 3-0 wash in losers finals with Problem X. Problem X is starting to build a lot of momentum. He's using Blanca, and people can't get a read on his offensive defensive decision making. Blanca has a lot of different wake up options with EX up ball, parry, backdash, jump back, air Blanca ball. So a lot of options, and Problem X is the perfect gambler to actually utilize them to the most effectiveness. And we have grand final setup for the LCQ. Problem X versus Punk. Just a classic matchup here. And this really got me thinking about the legacy of Problem X, because this guy has been competing at the highest level for quite some time. In fact, I really think about it, looking back into the history of Problem X in Street Fighter, I remember seeing him for the first time, or one of the first times I've ever seen him as a Street Monster, back in 2012 at the Street Fighter 25th anniversary. This is the year when the Capcom Cup idea was being formed. The Street Fighter 4 25th anniversary tournament was the precursor in 2012 to the first Capcom Cup in 2013, where top level players from all over the world were competing. And I remember in loser side here, this guy Problem X showing up with his Seth from the UK. You know, Justin Wong. Justin Wong is unstoppable. He's the American hero. Who can beat Justin Wong? This set is 4 minutes long. Problem X beats the crap out of Justin Wong in this set, looking extremely young there from the UK. Takes a set over Justin Wong, and I almost couldn't believe it at the time. You know, the world was a lot bigger at that time. We weren't as connected as a community. The world tour wasn't set up, and I think we were all a lot more in our silos. So to an American viewer in Stream Monster, Justin Wong was untouchable. And so that was a big shock to me, and I think a lot of the American viewers. And that's where Problem X's name became known to me. And he rocked Seth there, but he also had a really nasty C Viper and was one of the most dominant players in Europe. Coming into Street Fighter V, of course, though, this is when the world got a lot smaller, and you know, he was a dominant force for a huge part of Street Fighter V. And of course, he is the 2018 Evo champion, defeating Tokido in the grand finals. Tokido was trying to go for the back-to-back Evo wins. Problem X was the man to stop him, getting the win there for the UK, so that, you know, Europe has 2 Evo wins before America has 1. And, you know, he has many other titles in Street Fighter V as well, including winning Red Bull Kumite 2021. And this is a player who is able to reinvent himself with the time. So, of course, he's best known for his M. Bison play, the best M. Bison player in Street Fighter V on the planet. But he also incorporated a ton of other characters and playstyles. He used Honda competitively. He used, Abigail competitively. He knows how to use the right tool for the job. And so coming into Street Fighter 6, when this game was first releasing, the question was, what tool is Problem X going to use to get the job done now? And he first landed on Lily, which at the time kind of makes sense. You know, Lily, she's a bit of a hybrid grappler. She has this windstock mechanic where she gets that windstock stored. She has a horizontal moving special move that allows her to destroy any neutral game, get in, and then apply a mix-up with her command grab versus normals. And that's right up Problem X's alley. He loves to force people to guess, seeing as his history includes C Viper, Seth, Abigail, even M. Bison is sort of a safe guest character. You're going to pay the tax to get out of the pressure, right? So this is a character that makes sense on paper for Problem X, but I think as time would tell, Lily's strengths didn't quite live up to the mark that maybe Problem X was looking for in the beginning of Street Fighter 6's competitive season. And the first thing we see from him is actually his appearance at Red Bull Kumite South Africa very early in Street Fighter 6's release. He gets a nasty 5-0 over Idom in this bracket, which is a single elim first to 5 bracket, but ends up losing 5-0 in turn to Kakeru right after that in the JP Lily matchup. And since then, we hadn't really seen too much of his competitive success. In fact, if you look at the UK World Warrior program, where people are competing over 5 tournaments to qualify as the top 8 players in the region to then go to one last tournament to qualify for Capcom Cup, Problem X gets in with 115 points. But you see the point spread here, 115 to 100. He nearly did not make it into the top 8 for UK. The player who was the most dominant in the UK for many years nearly did not even qualify as one of the top 8 players. It came down to this final tournament and like a lot of these players beating each other and Problem X winning a clutch set to barely score his chance to actually compete for Capcom Cup. And the World Warrior Finals and the CPT event for the UK was actually near the very end of the season in late December, early January. And over time, what Problem X did to improve his chances was he started incorporating other characters. Lily wasn't quite as effective as he wanted it to be. He started playing a lot more Marissa in the middle of the season, and then towards the end, picked up Blanca. Blanca seemed to become more and more the dedicated pick for Problem X. However, it still wasn't necessarily getting the job done because in the CPT online qualifier, the winner of this event going straight to Capcom Cup, he ends up only getting 17th place. He doesn't even make it into the top 16 for the UK. And in this one, we saw Rain Pro versus Ending Walker in the grand finals, where Rain Pro actually takes it over Ending Walker. Rain Pro, top level guy from Hong Kong, residing in the UK, takes one of the 2 UK spots for himself to go to Capcom Cup. But he had another chance to qualify. The fact that he barely made it into the World Warrior Finals, he actually goes on a really good run and makes it into grand finals of the UK World Warrior regional final here, but goes up against the other prodigy from this region, young Ending Walker, who has proven himself to be one of the best players in the world, ends up defeating Problem X 3-0 in this grand final set, and ends up qualifying for Capcom Cup, where Problem X is then left with no other option but to then attend the LCQ if he wants to earn his shot to compete for $1 million. And with all that said, what does he go on to do? He goes to earn his shot to compete. 3-1 in the first set in grand finals after being completely smoked 3-0 in winners finals to reset the bracket 3-0 once again to qualify into Capcom Cup. Punk was not looking prepared for Problem X's RPS game. The amount of times he mixed them on Wake Up with landing successful EX up balls, successful up back Blanca air balls, and Wake Up buttons parry. His Wake Up game kept Punk guessing consistently whenever he wanted to establish offense, and his neutral and setup game and pressure on top of that was immaculate. He even forced Punk to switch off the Kami to Luke, which the Luke was unfortunately not able to close out any of the rounds. Problem X was looking absolutely unstoppable after previously being dominated in the winners finals. And with that said, the players, they shake hands here, showing good sportsmanship. And Problem X, a player that I don't think anyone called to win this LCQ, is the man to take it and go into the final spot for Capcom Cup. So the competitors in Pool H have a much bigger problem to deal with now. And that's all I have for this video, guys. Please let me know what you thought about this video in the comments, what you think about Problem X's run, and I'll catch you in the next one. Peace.